So welcome, and oh, I think here we go. Okay. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're super excited to teach you kind of a fun project tonight. Anyone that's joined us before in our Michael's classes, we usually paint on a canvas, which is fun and wonderful, but today it's summer everywhere. So we thought we would try something a little bit different. So we are painting on these little shells. Actually, not so little. And the reason for this is we just wanted to, one, be kind of creative, focus on the season. Maybe some of you have gone on vacation and you've gathered your own little shells, and this is something that can become an ornament. You could give it as a gift. I mean, there's so much. It's so fun to do a painting technique on something different than a canvas. So first thing I'm going to do is go over all the supplies that we're going to need for today. And I always tell everybody, I'm going to give you the supplies that I am going to use, but if you don't want to use red, if you don't want to use pink, if you have a different orange, all of that is so fine. Ask us any questions. We've got Caitlin in the studio tonight, and if you put any questions in the chat, she will get right back to you with an answer, or we'll talk together. So reach out to us in the chat, you guys, if you have any questions. Okay, so we are using shells. Really just a large, simple, I guess, clam shell. I don't even know. A large, simple shell. If you're doing this on 3 wood rounds or on a canvas, lots of techniques. But we're doing it on 3 unique shapes. So we are using FolkArt matte acrylic. For anyone that has never used that, the FolkArt matte acrylic is perfect for every type of painting. Canvas, little wood rounds, little shells, watercolor paper, so many great things. It's thick, it's rich, it blends, it shades. So it's just a great all-purpose matte acrylic. Okay, I'm going to go over the colors that I'm using. I'm using lime green. I am using Cardinal Red. All of these colors available at Michael's. Bright pink. Pure orange. I used a lot of colors. Baby pink. And here's, we always get questions. What if I don't have both pinks? A darker pink is better because you can add white to make a pastel pink. Always wicker white, and always licorice or pure black. And then a bright yellow, Daffodil Yellow. 2 blues, Dutch Aqua and Aqua. Again, if you just got Aqua, we can add some white to get a lighter color. And then classic green and coffee latte. So those are the colors that we are using tonight. A paper plate and paper towels, always. A water basin, always. And then I'm using a basic FolkArt brush set that is also available at Michael's. But again, I just want to show you guys. Obviously, we're only going to use little brushes for tonight. The biggest one I'll use is maybe this number 10 for base coating. But then if you don't have the exact brush set that I called out in the instructions, just have a few different small brushes. This, for example, is a liner. This is a number 6 flat. This is a little 10 liner brush. So just have an assortment of small brushes, and you'll be able to do all of the techniques that you see on these little shells. All right, I think that's all. Oh, so our goal for this class is to teach you fun techniques and have you leave with a great project in about an hour. So with that, we always have a blow dryer. Acrylic dries really fast, but the blow dryer makes it dry just that much faster. Okay, Caitlin, anyone have any questions? Nope. All right, we are gonna get started. I hope everyone's got their supplies. And the first thing we're gonna do is always the boring part. I'm gonna try to leave these, let's see, I put those right there. Can you guys see them? Just peek in at the screen. Okay, so the first thing is always the boring part, and we are going to base coat our little shells. So I'm going to get a little bit of the Dutch Aqua, and you just need a little bit because our little projects today. A little bit of Aqua. a little bit of Wicker White. And you know what? I'm missing one color. I need, hang on guys. Let me see if it's right there. Yep, hang on. I'm leaving, but I'm coming right back. All right. For those of you that were following me exactly, the only color I was missing was a really pretty bright blue. And this is FolkArt Bright Blue. And that's this little part, the ocean and the sky. So you want a little bit of that. So you want aqua, white, and blue for now. And then a little bit of your tan or your sand color, which for me is that coffee latte. Okay, so those are our base coat colors. And what we'll do is we will base coat all three at the same time. So I don't ever provide a pattern. And the main reason is, one, it would be really tricky to apply a pattern into these shell shapes. And two, once you apply a pattern and then your base coat, your pattern is gone. So I'm going to teach you just some really simple ways that I always use to kind of think through my base coat. So this shell, for example, is divided. He's almost dipped. The bottom is tan and the top is aqua. So I'm going to take a little bit of that tan and I'm going to just do a line that represents the dip. Then for this one, I'm just going to hold it next to it so you guys can kind of see. So I've got the sky. So I'm going to do a straight line. And then I've got a really jagged, irregular edge where the beach is going into the sand. So I'm just going to kind of get a little bit more paint, make that jagged edge that represents that. So that is all we ever need as a pattern. I try to tell people that a pattern, you would apply all these little people and the waves and the detail, and then you're almost color book painting rather than learning all of the fun techniques. Same thing with here, just the bottom is dipped. That's where the sand is. So I'm just going to make a line across the bottom. So you guys can you guys see how easy that became a pattern? And then I'm simply going to base coat. I'm going to go into the tan, a little bit into the white. There's no right or wrong, just a little bit of both on my brush. And then I'm just going to start base coating. And I don't want a solid tan base coat. That's why I'm dipping a little bit into the Wicker White every now and then. And I'm just doing, we've called it a slip slap where you just go back and forth, but just a really loose, flat brush stroke to fill in the area. You don't want to go back and forth always in the same direction because you'll get a pattern. And you want all of that texture that you can get by just a really loose random base coat and just going into the white every so often. So you get all of that. You almost get shading and highlighting just by getting some of that white onto your brush. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with my beach, mostly the tan, but then go in to the white. The second time I pick up paint, I'm not going to pick up any white. The third time, I'm going to pick up more white. And all that's doing is allowing you to base coat several different shades of that color in that area. That's what's going to give us all of our depth, our dimension. I'm going to go into the white, but not blending it. Can you guys see? I haven't created a color by mixing white and tan. I've allowed a bunch of different values to show up by not completely blending it. And same with this one. Oh, yeah.
Whenever you get the chance after each step, do you think you can just put the shell closer to the camera?
Oh, absolutely. Here, I'll base coat this and then I will do that. Good idea. Oh, almost done with my sand. Okay. So and actually I'll do this one too. So this is him. So you can see the different values of one color. All righty. And then this is him. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm trying to be super still. Okay. And then, am I right? Yep. This is him. Ah, Kaylin, look, I'm terrible. There we go. Is that better? And really the only thing that matters here is that you've got those values. You've got your white showing and your tan, because that's just going to give you texture. Okay.
And what color were you just using again?
I was using always Wicker White and then that coffee latte, which is my tan.
Cool, thank you.
All right, so then I'm going to clean my brush. I always tell everyone, always clean your brush in water, but then remove as much water as possible on a paper towel, just because you don't want water in any of the techniques that we're doing tonight. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. If you need more Wicker White on your plate, grab some more out of the bottle. If not, I'm going to scoot that little bit of Wicker White I had left away from the tan, just because now I'm going to be doing that same technique with the white and the aqua. So I'm going to go into the aqua and then just go into the Wicker White. And same loose brush strokes. And I'm just going to start applying paint. I'm going to go into the Dutch aqua, but I'm not cleaning my brush in between, because I like the way all three of these colors will just overlap and give you all of that shading. If you like the dark aqua, you can add more. If you like the really soft pastel, like you've been to the Bahamas, yes, I'm jealous. Same with the beach. The only secret here, oh, I'm going to hold that up, is you just want all of that dimension, all those different shades of aqua. Okay, so that's that guy. I'm going to do the same thing with this, and you can see it stops at the sky. So if you would like kind of a guide, just complete that line and know all of that is ocean. And I'm kind of overlapping, again, not with a perfect straight line, but just kind of overlapping the edge of that sand just a little bit. And I'm using the tip of my flat brush, which is called your chisel edge, to kind of create not a straight line, but I'm going from the ocean into the sand, ocean into the sand, just dragging it into there to kind of create the movement that the ocean would have naturally. And then I'm just going to go back and fill in with that same irregular brush stroke. All of those shades of aqua is the movement in the ocean. Okay, so that's that one. And then this guy is the one that has the most sky, and it is just a straight line. So there's your straight line to represent your beach. I'm going to do a straight line about there. If you want less ocean and more sky, you could do it lower. If you want more ocean, put your horizon line wherever, but it's just a simple straight line. Same three colors, and then dipping into the Wicker White, which actually I need a little bit more. Dipping into the Wicker White every now and then to give you that highlight. Right, I can hold that up. Oh, there we go. Just so you guys can see. So our little base coats really pull it all together. Still using the same brush. I'm going to clean that, but also remove all the water that I can on the paper towel. And I've only got sky, so this guy's done. I've only got sky on these two shells. So the exact same thing with the bright blue, but then always dipping in the wicker white. Not cleaning your brush between. FolkArt matte acrylic dries really fast. That's why so many people love painting with it, because you can do what you can do with oils, but way faster because of the dry time. But if anyone's painting on these shells, it dries so fast, which I actually am loving. I don't know why, but on the shells, it dries super, super fast. Okay, same with this one. All I'm doing is base coating the sky. So the bright blue, I'm going to be a little bit more blue where the water and the sky meet. So I'm going to create that strong line and kind of feather that bright blue up a little. And then on this one, I'm going to grab the wicker white and make the top of my sky fade to a lighter blue. But not blending so much, just like our sand and just like our ocean. Not blending so much that we get a solid color, because that's no fun. That's a fun cloud, real beachy, bright blue sky, but with all of those different shades of blue. I think I'm going to go back and do the same with this one. All I'm doing is picking up wicker white and adding a little bit more white to the top. If you like the bright sky, don't do it. Just leave it exactly as it is. I just want a little contrast between my horizon line where the sand meets the sky, and then I guess the clouds, right, that are off in the distance. Okay, I think that, scoop those over there. I think that's a perfect base coat. Anyone have any questions about the base coat?
There was one question. If they found shells at the beach, would they use something else before the base coat?
No. So if you found a shell at the beach, the main thing is just clean it with soap and water. Make sure it's nice and clean. If it, I mean, a lot of people will soak them, which we couldn't do in this class, but a lot of people will soak them in like a laundry detergent. But you would have had to do that before. But no, just soap and water if they're basic shells. You don't have to base coat them or prime them or anything. Good question. Okay. So everyone, we've got our base coats, and all we're really going to do is add some fluff to our base coat. So for this one, for example, our next step is, you can see behind this little, I guess what, seagrass, there's a little bit of texture in the waves. There's a little bit of detail in the clouds. We'll do that. For this one, there's a little bit of white where the waves are crashing. We're going to add that. And for this one, the same thing. There's a little bit of white that represents the sand or where the waves crash and make that bubble. So that's the next step, but our base coat is totally done. So I'm going to get a little bit smaller flat brush, and I'm out of wicker white. I'm going to get wicker white on my palette. And we're going to use the flat brush almost like a spouncer. We're going to go up and down and pounce like that. We're not going to go back and forth like a traditional brush stroke. So I'm just going to dip into the wicker white, and then I'm actually going to tap it off on my paper towel. I always tell people it's so easy to add paint if you don't have enough, but it's harder to take it off. So now really light-handed, I don't want to mash down. I don't want to mash down and like squish my bristles. One, that would be bad for my brush, but two, that would apply too much paint. I almost want to act like it's two magnets and the brush doesn't want to sit too long on the shell. So I'm just tapping as fast as I can and kind of pulling away really quick. And what that will do is it will just give you, I'll hold this up so you guys can see it. Pick up paint a lot. It'll give you a really light, it might not even be hard for you guys to see, a really light representation of like the waves and the bubbles that the waves create when they hit the shore. So you're just dipping in the Wicker White, you're dipping next to it. So you take some of the paint off your brush and you're just quickly pouncing. You're not mashing down your bristles on your brush, but you're just going really quick. And it allows just enough paint to get on there to be soft. You still see the sand and you still see the ocean, the base coat through this technique. Can you see? I don't know if that's high enough. Oh, I can't see the screen.
Yeah.
See how it just softens the base coat line? That's all you're doing is softening. And if you want a little area where the second wave is about to crash, same technique. I wouldn't go all the way like a stripe. So I'm just going to start right about there. Really light. You're just jumping or pouncing on. And then I might have one more that maybe breaks up here. So I'll start with a little line.
And if they don't have bright blue, do you have a recommendation on what they can do?
Any blue, there's so many great folk art colors at Michael's. There's a navy blue, there's a bright blue. I think they carry cobalt blue. Any color that you think represents the sky. Any blue would work.
Okay.
Navy is one of my favorite folk art blues, and that would work. You would just add a little bit more Wicker White. So just using that technique, you soften the edge and you add a little bit of detail in your ocean. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm not going to touch the horizon line where the sky and the ocean meet, but getting that same Wicker White on and then off my brush, I'm going to do it where the sand and the ocean meet. And all you're doing is kind of softening that line and creating the look of the water coming up on the shore. See how it just softens the line? Sorry, I keep putting it up too high. Each little step, our ocean gets a little bit more detailed. So same with this. This is the beach where the ocean meets the sand. Same technique in the Wicker White and then next to it, removing some of it. And this one, the only difference, instead of completely eliminating that kind of jagged edge, I'm going to go in that same direction. Let's see if I'm capable. I don't think I am, to paint up high. I'm going to go almost like a zipper, in and then out, in and then out. Because I want that irregular edge. You guys see that? So instead of going up and down or creating a solid line, I'm going back and forth. Same technique. See how it creates? Can you guys even see that?
Yeah, a little square.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Just the area where the water breaks. Going a little bit into the ocean. There's really no right or wrong, you guys. The technique is using the end of the bristles, very little paint and no water. And after that, I mean, if you have more of a curvy shoreline, maybe it's like an S, maybe your horizon line is lower. All of that is perfect. Okay, so there's a little bit more detailed base coat. Okay, which one? Any questions about that technique?
No.
Pretty simple. Okay, so put that in the water, and now I'm going to get my little liner brush. And you know what? Maybe we'll do this one first because this one is the easiest. So I am going to get the tiniest bit of licorice onto my palette. And I am going to get that same sand color, the coffee latte. Oops, I'm going to just move a little bit over here. And you guys, the tiniest amount. I'm just going to barely touch that black. Barely. Black will change a color so quickly. Barely touch that black because I want a shade a little bit darker than my sand color. So just stir that around. Again, it's our sand color. So our coffee latte, if that's what you're using, with barely touching the black. Like a dot the size of a ballpoint pen is enough to change that color. And I'm using a 10 liner brush. So I've got that mix, and then a trick with the liner brush is load the brush, but then roll it out of the paint because that will allow the little tip to be as thin as possible. So all I'm going to do to add my grass, and you guys, you can add one big one in the center. You can add just one to the left if you want it maybe more open. Maybe you're going to personalize it with the year and the vacation spot. Pick the spot that you want your little seagrass and do your dominant pieces, your long pieces first. So I'm going to do a long piece of seagrass that comes up to the right. I'm going to pick up that darker tan, and I'm going to do another one that comes up to the left. Let's see if I can do one up tall. And really irregular. I don't want them to stand up perfectly straight like a soldier. I want them to look like they're blowing in the wind. I'm going to do another one that's kind of fallen more to the left. And do as many as you want. And I'm going to do one that kind of just goes right there. They're overlapping the ocean. And then I'm going to do one over here, which he's going to be my big one. So this one I'm going to do a little bit smaller. I'll do a sprig that goes left. Maybe overlap with a little, pick up paint as you need it. A little sprig that goes that way. And then I might do one more that kind of falls short. So that's kind of the base of everything. And then I'm going to go in and add my details, which my details are the shorter grass that the long stalks sit in. The reason why I always do the big, the ones that have more movement first is because they're more important. These little ones are really just fillers that give the big ones a spot to sit. And then just using the very tip of that brush, I'm just doing a long stroke, kind of curving to the left, curving to the right, the natural way that grass would fall. I'm going to do another one over here. It's hard to do, holding up. I always like to pull away from me or push away from me, sorry. So let's see if I can show you guys. It might be hard. Instead of starting here and pulling down, because where you end the stroke is always thinner. So if you start here, it's thicker, but where you end a stroke is always thinner when you're using a liner brush like this. So that's why I always like to start at the base of the little mound of grass. See how that's thicker when you pull down? But when you start and then, I know my hand's probably in the way. But all you've done is a few long pieces and then a few short. I'm going to clean off that same brush, not in the water, but just on the paper towel. And then I'm going to pick up the Wicker White. And I'm going to do a few, let's see if you guys can see this, a few pieces. This would just be where the sun is kind of hitting it, so it'll look like a highlight. A few pieces of grass that are white right over the wet paint. And a few on this side. And then I'm going to go right back into that tan without cleaning the brush. And I'm going to put, see the tops of the wheatgrass have those little, I have no idea what they're called. Tops of wheatgrass, beach grass. Do you know what they're called?
I don't.
Me neither. I'm going to just put the tiniest little strokes on the top of only the tall ones, not the little base, but just the tall ones. 3 or 4 almost little dashes. Look at that. Same brush. I'm going to go into the Wicker White. You still got the tan on there, so you will get a lot of variety of color. And I'm going to just go over what I've just done in the tan. And again, all that's doing is creating a little highlight. Never be afraid to layer color, because that's what gives you all the dimension, especially on something like this. And that might be it. If you want more grass, if you want more waves, if you want a darker horizon line, you could go in with that little liner brush. I'm going to pick up just the Wicker White. And if you want to, you can do a few lines, be really soft-handed. And I'm going to do just a few really soft lines. Horizontal, to just kind of show, I don't know what that would be, where the water's breaking or where the waves are forming out in the distance, if you want a little bit more detail. And then I'm going to actually pick up that bright blue and just do the same thing where the sky meets the ocean. And just kind of softly add some dimension. And then I'm going to clean that brush, go on the paper towel, and I might actually just do a few lines. You're just scrubbing the white on there. So you dip into the white, you do a line, and then you just kind of scrub back and forth. And what that will do is just, you don't want to do like a puffy cloud and do circles. You don't want to do something that is exact, because we're doing kind of a loose abstract technique and we have all of this great texture. So you want to keep that consistent. So for the clouds, you just want to scrub white into the shell, into the sky background. Oh, that's a fun. There we go. Really fluffy clouds for summer. Okay, so that one's done. And you guys, we had someone that was been watching or seeing these sitting on our desk and that knew this class was coming up, and they're painting, hopefully with us. But then they're going to go in with a Sharpie marker or a liner brush if you feel like you can. And they're going to write the year and where they went and create an ornament. I thought that was the cutest idea. A great thing to do with your shell when you guys are done painting it. All right, so our little beach with our little seagrass is done. Now we'll go into our little tropical flower. So again, we do not have a pattern for this, and that is okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to break it apart into different shapes. So add your greens to your palette. I'm going to get a little bit. You guys can see we're using such a little amount of paint. Classic green, lime green, Wicker White if you don't have it. I'm going to get some of both the bright and the light pink. Oops. And a little bit of the orange. This is for the person who went to Hawaii. which is not me. I wish it was. Okay, so a little bit, and again, you should have the wicker white. So for this one, let me put that guy into the photo so you guys can see it. I like to find the center of the flower first. So get maybe your medium flat brush. This is a number 2 flat brush. I like to find the center of the flower. So I'm just going to pick up some of that light pink, and I'm simply going to put a dot where the center of that flower would be. And then still in the pink, just because I'm going to put a little dot where I want the center of the other flower to be. Just a place to start. Knowing that that's my center, I'm going to draw, you know what? I'm going to do it in the dark pink. You guys do it in the light pink. I'm going to do it in the dark pink just so you guys can see it better. I'm going to draw the simplest daisy, like we all doodled on our notebooks for years, starting at the center and doing those little petals. Can you guys see that better now that it's the dark pink?
Slightly.
How about that? It looks like a little kindergarten doodle. But all you're doing is getting placement, guys. So you've got placement for that flower. And now I'm going to go in and base coat that. Once you get the placement, that's the most intimidating part of painting, because filling in is easy. So then you've got your first little tropical flower. I'm going to grab another brush, actually the same exact size, and I'm going to dip into that orange, and I'm going to do the same really awful little teardrop strokes. And all this is doing is to create a pattern. So you can see it's that doodled flower that we all did while we were talking on the phone. And then I'm going to go in and fill that in. So that gives us a perfect idea of where we're going to be adding leaves and backgrounds and highlights. Okay, so you guys have your base coat. Same thing that we did with the tan and wicker white and the aqua and wicker white. I've got orange loaded on my brush. I'm going to get a little bit of white. And maybe I'm just going to do the edge on that petal. Maybe just towards the center on that petal. Pick up a little orange, maybe just a second coat of orange. You're really just, I don't want you to overthink it. There's no right or wrong, but you're just applying some shading and some highlighting, but very abstract, by dipping every now and then into the wicker white. Each petal is not the same. The base coat is just very irregular. But see how it looks shaded and highlighted without a lot of prep. I'm going to clean that brush. It's really important with details like this to remove all the water on a paper towel. I'm going to go into that dark pink, and I'm going to just darken the center. I don't know if holding it up is helping. I'm going to darken the center of that flower. I'm going to clean off any extra paint on my paper towel, and I'm going to go into the white and the light pink, but not blending, just having all three colors on my brush. And then I'm going to maybe add a little white on that petal, maybe a little on that petal. Maybe I'll go into the dark pink and have one petal be darker than the others. The only thing that matters is you're getting all of those values of pink. All right, now I'm going to get my liner brush that we used for our seagrass, and I'm going to go into that dark green. And just like when we did our seagrass, I'm going to do the biggest part first. So I'm going to do this tropical leaf, these tropical leaves, and these, because they're the biggest, the most dominant parts of my design. So I'm going to start at my flower. Let's see if I can do this. And I'm going to start at my flower and pull away to represent the size of the leaf. I'm going to go over here to the orange one, and I'm going to start at the flower, and I'm going to pull away. Ah, can you guys see that? These little projects are hard. I hope you guys can. Okay.
Yeah, we can see them.
I'm going to go right back into the green, and I'm going to do kind of a big leaf that comes off there, maybe a big leaf that comes off there, and a little shorter one that might come off there. So again, just placement. It's like we're doing our pattern in stages. Then I'm going to do 2 long tropical leaves over here. So all these are my center stems or the placement of where my leaves will go. Okay, so these 3 and these 2 are just long, simple tropical leaves. I'm going to go into the dark green and to the light green and just apply both colors just like we've done with everything else. If you end up having more of the lime green on your brush, that's fine. If you end up having more of the dark green on your brush, that's fine too. You're just going to go back and forth into the 2 when you need more paint. There is a perfect example. I just went back and forth into the 2 so you get both colors on your painting without having to think where to shade or highlight. You don't want it solid because that would be flat and simple. That's why if you just keep going into a lighter and a darker value. Oh, I dropped my brush. Sorry, guys. Okay, so those are those. Next, we're going to do that tropical palm leaf. Same thing. I like to start in the center and go out because your stroke will be thicker where you start, not where you end. So I'm touching on the center stroke and I'm just fanning it out, doing long strokes, alternating between the light and the dark green. It's kind of hard to hold up. Let's see. If your paint's not moving, you can get the tiniest bit of water, not too much. Just dip the end of your bristles in there and add just the tiniest bit of water if you're getting a drag. And that will just help that brush glide just a little better. The lights in the studio tend to dry the paint pretty quick. But you can see I'm not filling it in. I want that sand and that ocean to show through. And then I'm going to jump over here and do the same thing on this side, starting on the stem and pulling away from the center of the leaf. And on this one, I'm going right off the edge of the seashell. The littlest bit of water if your brush is sticking. But you want to stay just on the tip of that brush because you want these strokes to be so thin. I'm not sure if holding it up is helping you guys or not because I'm probably so shaky.
I think it's helping.
Helping, good. And then a little bit, you'll see if there's a spot where you need to add some more. And then all I'm going to do is around my flower. See, there's that little area, a little bit in the center. I'm just going to bounce between the 2 greens and just pounce paint on there. All I'm wanting to do, don't go, leave a little bit of sand in between because again, it's just a fun, loose, abstract type style painting that we're doing. Don't outline your flower and make it perfect. I'm just bouncing in between the 2 green colors and getting green in between all of the flowers. Let's see if I hold that up. But can you see it's still those irregular brush strokes, a little bit of light green, a little bit of dark green. And you're just filling in with green to make it look like a base for your tropical flowers. All righty. I'm going to go a little bit into that dark green. I didn't have much dark. And add some. Okay, guys, now same thing we've been doing. Take that dirty green brush and roll it into the wicker white. And you're going to do the same thing. A few little dots of wicker white mixed in with your green. Makes it look like the spot where the sun is shining. If you've got too much white, don't clean your brush, but just go right back into the green. And then with a little bit of the white and the green in your brush, do a few strokes on your tropical leaves. That'll create a highlight. See how that one did that? But I didn't clean my brush, so it's not just white. It's got the green in it still. And the white is mixing with it as we add strokes. If you want to add a little white, a little highlight to those, but see the details? It's so easy to get by just layering and not cleaning your brush in between light and dark green. Okay, I am going to clean my brush, same little liner brush in the water. Dry it off on a paper towel. And then I am going to go into the wicker white and add some details, not an outline, but maybe a little stroke on that petal, maybe 2 strokes on that, just to give it a little bit of detail on our flowers. If you want to kind of fan out from the center, simple little strokes. Same with the little orange guy. I'll define him with a little highlight. But not too much, okay? Then I'm going to clean off the white on my palette, and I'm going to dip into that bright yellow. And I'm going to do a line, a short little line coming from the center of the flower, about a ½ inch to the left. And then that same technique that we did with the waves, where you just lightly jump onto the shell, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow on the end of that line. Go directly into the white, still got yellow on there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the little orange flower. I'll bring it down this way. Maybe you guys will be able to see it. Little dots at the end of the line, right into the white. That's the little center, the detail. And then using that little liner brush, I'm going to go in and just add really almost like polka dots. A few little yellow polka dots in that green section, maybe a bigger polka dot there, maybe a large yellow polka dot here. They're just blobs of color. I'm just taking the liner brush and applying color. Clean that on the paper towel. I'm going to go into that light pink and add a few little dots that are close together. Maybe 1 or 2 over here. I'm going to go into that dark pink. You're really just adding polka dots. Not in a perfect pattern, but it looks like beautiful beach foliage. And you guys, that's it for this one. So now we've got 2 done. A great place to personalize if that's what you guys choose to do. Okay, and now this is my favorite one. all of our little friends playing in the ocean and painting people. Anyone that's taking this class or has ever taken a class with me before, the thought of painting a person is impossible for me. There's no way that I can do it with or without a pattern. So you guys, I am going to hold this up and try not to shake. Here's the chance. Can you see? Look how easy it's going to be right now to make fun of me. Those aren't really people. They're just like blobs of color. But because we're doing this fun abstract technique, it looks like people, right?
Yeah, they're really
blankets, cute. Doesn't it? There's towels, and there's a short person and a tall person, and that I'm sure is a mom. I'm positive that's a dad. But you guys, look close. The reason I want you to see it so close is, honestly, there is not a person on that shell. They're blobs of color. So this is where you could tank. Don't tank, because they're not supposed to look when you're close up like people. It's the fun abstract technique that looks like people, but don't overthink 2 legs, 2 arms. Don't do it. Okay. So first things first. My palette's kind of messy. I've got the tan that we used. I've got the tan that we mixed that is a little bit darker. I'm going to add, again, just the size of a ballpoint pen tip, a little bit more black into a small section of that tan. I want all different shades for my people or my blobs. Don't tell. My people are just blobs. So I've got a darker tan, a lighter tan. I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm going to bring some Wicker White over here so they're all in the same area. And then I've got my black. So I have maybe 4, 3, 5, however many colors you want that represents our people or our blobs. So have that in the same area on your palette. So we've got our small liner brush. Again, I'm using the 10, the same one we've used for all of the details. So guys, this is even hard. This is hard for me. So you don't want to think person. I know that sounds so weird. You don't want to think head, body, arms, legs, because you're going to get stick people, and that's not the look that you want. So what you're going to do, I'm not sure even how I'm going to say this. Okay, so pick your first shade. I'm just going to go directly into that tan. Very little paint on your brush. And let's just start by putting a little tap, a little blob, anywhere on the shell. Because you don't want your people in rows like dancers. You want them at the beach, very random. I'm going to put a little blob right there. I'm going to put a line right there. I'm going to scoot down here and I'm going to put a little shorter line. All I'm doing is placing my people, but I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to put a little blob right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want a little person right there. That's all. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little people. Okay. Now back and forth. I'm going to go into the darker tan and I'm going to do a longer stroke that represents a line. Don't think it's an arm or a leg. That's where things get crazy, because we're not painting perfect people. We're doing abstract beach scenes. I'm going to go into that dark tan and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do a long stroke. Here's a perfect example. So I've got a long stroke. I'm going to do one leg. I'm going to start on the body. Remember, where you start is always thicker than where you end. So I'm going to pull off the body. Here, I'm going to do a little arm. And the reason I'm jumping around and adding a limb to each person individually, because if you stay on one and you do body, 2 legs, 2 arms, it's going to get too perfect. And that's what you don't want. I'm going to dip that same brush, I didn't clean it off, into the white. And I'm going to do just a little blob. And then I'm going to go into the black. And I'm going to do a little blob on top of that stroke. I'm going to go into the tan that I mixed with a little touch of black. And I'm going to do one arm. They're more like tadpoles. They're not people, they're tadpoles. On this one, I'm going to do a long stroke. They'll start to come together. It feels really, really odd, but just dip back and forth into the shades that you're using. Light tan, dark tan, black, a little bit of white, even some yellow or some pink. Pink for the redhead will represent the redhead that's going to get a little bit sunburnt. You don't want them to look like people. You want them to just represent. So some of them, like look at this one. That one poor lady, I think she's got a really long leg and a really short leg if you look at it that close. But that's what we're not going to do. So I'm going to go back and make sure each one does have a little circle to somewhat represent the head. And then go into the black if you want. I know this one, I want to have black hair. So I'm going to go into the black and just lightly put the littlest bit of black on what has kind of formed into a head. I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm going to clean off the brush. I'm going to go into the yellow and I'm going to say, oh, this one's going to have a little blob of color on top. So that's going to represent blonde hair. Then I'm going to just keep building. Like this one looks like it needs a leg. So I'm going to give it a leg. I might actually add one more person right there because I've got an open spot. So I'm doing a little circle. So there's the head, but then I'm going to do a long stroke. I'll do one arm, but just a blob. You don't want 2 exact arms, 2 exact legs, and a head because you will have stick people and you will not like it. All right, I'm going to clean off that brush on a paper towel and I'm just going to dip into all the colors that are my favorite. I'm going to add a little bit of the red. So I'm going to dip into the red and I'm going to say, oh, she's going to be in a bikini. So I'm going to do a little line and a little dash. You guys can see, and I hope someone out there is making fun of me. It's not a bikini. It's not a person, but you guys, it looks like it because we're doing fun abstract painting. I'm going to get into that bright pink because I love the pink. And I'm just going to put one blob of color on that. Maybe he's the guy. And just keep doing that back and forth. I'm not even cleaning my brush. If there's a little pink in the yellow, I think that's awesome. I'm going into the orange now. If there's a little orange, I think that's awesome. You know what? I love the green. I'm going to give this person, I'm going to go right into that green. I love that lime green. That was in our botanicals. This person's going to be holding a bag. Look, I put the green blob on the end of their hand for no reason other than all we're adding is fun pops of color. I'm going to use that light pastel pink. See how here, I shouldn't be close anymore. Here, it's little abstract people. Okay, so I'm going to go into that bright pink. And I'm not going to do a perfect rectangle. I'm going to do 3 long strokes. That'll be a little beach towel. I'm going to go into the orange. I've still got pink on my brush. I'm going to do a little beach towel. But you guys look, it's not a perfect rectangle. It just represents a beach towel. I definitely have to have a yellow beach towel. There's going to be too close. So a long rectangle. I think I'm going to do, I'm going to do another, no, I'm for sure going to do a red beach towel. I'm going to do a little red beach towel over here. That's a perfect example. It is not like a brick. It's just representing. A little bit more pink. I'll pop into the wicker white, just like we've been doing. Not cleaning our brush in between. Same with the orange and a little bit of wicker white. Same with that little yellow beach towel. If you want to do polka dots on one, if you want to do not really heavy, you don't want to do exact stripes, but maybe a little more dominant than the other ones. If you want to go back in, I'm going to add some brown hair to that little guy. I love the pop of black. So you're just adding spots of color, but it's really a great, fun way to represent a little group, a little family playing on the shore. I'm going to add a little bit more white because like we've done with everything, it just kind of becomes the spot that the sun has hit. So I'm just putting the littlest, barely, the littlest bit of white on a lot of the areas of my people. It could be a little dot on the color, a little dot on the tan, but just something that kind of represents where the sun would give a little highlight. So there you go. You've got your little family and their towels frolicking on the beach, getting ready to go in the waves. All right. Do we have any questions about our beautiful little family?
We do not.
We do not. So you guys, if we don't have any questions, that is it. It's taking a really fun object. Again, it can be shells, it could be rocks, it could be cute pieces of driftwood, and doing fun painting techniques to paint. All of it with the FolkArt matte acrylic, and we completed it in exactly an hour. So you guys, if we don't have any questions, I wanted to say thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Michaels. We love teaching these classes with you guys. FolkArt matte acrylic is available at Michaels. They have such a great color selection, and we hope you guys join us next time, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.